the weekly show with David J. Maloney.
This week, David chats with Doug Johnson of the iconic band Loverboy.
And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to the weekly show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. As you know, before the pandemic, we'd shoot the show before a small studio audience at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. And after several months of shooting the show from home, hoping we'd get back to our live-to-tape shows, we were not renewed for that format. Instead, we've been renewed for a new televised podcast format, which leaves us without a studio audience, but does allow us to have so many more great guests on the show whom otherwise might not be able to join us. Of course, you can still watch the show on your television or on YouTube, but you can now also listen to extended interviews with our guests on our very own weekly show podcast. Please go to our social media platforms for more information. So on tonight's show, we've got a very special, talented guest from one of the prime rock bands of its era. You may remember the band for its smash hits like Lovin' Every Minute of It, This Could Be the Night, and Workin for the Weekend, all the way to selling over 10 million records. Tonight, we are going to sit down with none other than Doug Johnson of Loverboy to chat about the band, his personal projects, and their upcoming tour. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Our featured guest tonight is a founding member of one of the greatest bands of his era. His band Loverboy went on to sell over 10 million records with songs that have stayed in the public consciousness for decades, with songs like Workin' for the Weekend, Heaven in Your Eyes from the Top Gun soundtrack, and so many more. Here to chat about the band, music history, his own fascinating projects, and Loverboy's upcoming tour is their very own Doug Johnson. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So most of us know you and your music, but I'd love to know a little bit more about your background. Where did you grow up?
So I'm a Canadian, as we all are. Actually, Matt, I think, just got his green card, and he might be applying for U.S. citizenship. And I grew up in what is commonly referred to as the Pacific Northwest, up near Seattle. So just over the border is a beautiful city called Vancouver, and I live in a suburb of Vancouver, and that's kind of where I grew up. So some 64 years ago, I came into the world and spent the better part of my early years up until I was 20. And then I moved up to another Canadian city, probably 600 miles north of here, called Calgary. And that was in between my second year of college and what ultimately became my musical career. I needed to make some more money to pay for my college at the subsequent year 3 and 4. And so I got a job in Calgary and ended up running into Paul and Mike, because I was playing in some local bands there. And then we put the nucleus of the band together basically at that time. So yeah, so I'm a Canadian West Coast dude, and I love living here. It's a beautiful city, beautiful place to be.
So was music a big part of your life or your home life growing up?
Yeah, so my mother played piano, and we had a big old upright piano in the house that weighed about 2 tons. Massive cast iron back soundboard on the back. I remember when we moved it in, it actually, the two work guys, the two moving guys were moving it into the house, and they hit a patch of soft soil, and the whole thing started to sink into the ground. And my mom started crying and running around, and they rescued this poor piano. But anyways, set it up. My mom would play, and I'd get up there beside her on the bench, and I'd kind of mimic what she was doing. And she thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. He seems to have some bit of rhythmic aptitude. So went off and took lessons. I started taking piano lessons at the age of 4. And then I completed my classical degree at the age of 18. And so that was all of the, everything from Bach through Chopin, Debussy, all that kind of classical music. I got very well acquainted with all of that kind of Western European music. And then I took some jazz lessons too for a while. And I played clarinet in high school. And then I started playing saxophone for the band, actually, because it was essentially the same fingering from moving from clarinet to saxophone. And then I figured out how to play the harmonica. So yeah, I wear a lot of hats in the band now. So, but my basic core education was definitely classical.
When did the performing bug hit you? Obviously, the music bug hit you early. Was there a point in time where you went, this is, I want to be in front of audiences. This is what I want to do?
Yeah, I think the turning point for myself and probably a lot of fellow musicians of my vintage, if you will, is that seminal night on Ed Sullivan when the Beatles played their first show in North America, and it was televised. And I remember watching that and going, "Oh my God, what a great job that would be!" Just singing those great songs and all the girls
screaming. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, I think it was all of 7 or 8 years old, and that stayed with me. And, as you go through life in your teenage years and so on, and you're learning the whole way about your craft and music and so on. You sort of still have those aspirations and fantasies of what it might be like to be an entertainer, and just very sort of haphazardly and through no real plan of my own, the universe conspired to put me together with 4 other guys to create the band Loverboy. So you just never know where your paths are going to lead,
Well, let's talk about Loverboy. When you guys started out, was there kind of a design or plan to go in a particular direction and try to get into, the music culture the way you did, or were you guys just trying to get local work? How did that come together? Some bands, they have, the blinders on, you know what I mean? And other ones,
Sure.
They get discovered, and then, how did that work for you guys?
Well, I think it was Paul had a lot of experience. He's 12 years older than me, so I'm 64, just turned 64, and so coming into this, he was definitely had seniority in terms of experience, and he had a vision of what the band should be like musically. I came along and added in my influences all throughout the songwriting process. Excuse me. And then him and I worked together for a couple of months, and then Mike came into the scene, and of course with his voice, we just went, "Oh wow, this just moved the goalposts again." So we started writing for that, and I came from kind of the prog rock, more keyboard oriented stuff. Obviously, Paul came from the Jimi Hendrix school of heavy guitar, and so the two of our influences came together to mesh into this sort of unique sort of keyboard versus guitar thing. We're each trying to find our place within the song. And then of course, Mike's vocal, delivering the message of the song. That's kind of how the sound, I think, evolved. And it evolved over a period of about 1978, when we first started woodshedding in Calgary, working on songs. Then we got a management deal from Bruce Allen, who manages Michael Bublé and Bryan Adams, a couple other bands I can't remember, but anyway, so he asked us to move back to Vancouver for me anyways, and it was great because I was coming back home, and we signed a deal with him, and he found a place for us to continue writing, and we got a call, would have been November 26th, I think it was, of 1979. Our manager asked us if we wanted to be the opening act for Kiss. We had never, ever played publicly before, like nowhere, not a birthday, bar mitzvah, nothing. So all we were was just like writing in a warehouse and on gear that was kind of just thrown together. So, excuse me, we said yes. And, what the heck? It was a great way to get our music in front of a whole bunch of people to test it out. And it actually went over surprisingly well, considering the fanaticism of the Kiss army. I think we managed to get through about 6 songs and kind of got our point across. And then it was time to leave. You don't want to wear it your welcome with the Kiss fans. So that was quite an experience that shaped and informed kind of how we were going to be as a live band. And it was a great lesson. And then to stick around after the show and watch, of course, their show, which was this is massive, Cirque du Soleil-ish kind of everything's nothing, never a dull moment kind of thing going on. And so it was inspiring too.
Well, when I was, I think 11 and 12, I was Ace Frehley 2 Halloweens in a row. So I know what you're talking about. What do you remember about actually standing on that stage? I mean, or maybe some backstage moments from the show. I feel like those are the types of things that those memories would be kind of seared into your brain.
Yeah, I can remember just before going on stage and the lights went down and you're like, okay, this is it. This is the big moment. Let's get up there and do our thing. And I think we started off with Turn Me Loose. And so I'm holding that chord down and I'm not getting any sound. And I'm going, okay, what's going on here? This is terrible. This is embarrassing. Let's get going here. And it turned out that my volume pedal had not been engaged. But I was like so distracted by the immensity of the proportions of this experience that I was not paying attention to the minutiae that was normally just in my muscle memory. Anyways, figured it out, proceeded with the song, and it was good. And after the show, we all came back and we were all like high-fiving, going, wow, that was amazing, man. That was so cool. And we all stood up there. We did our thing. Nobody freaked out. It's like, yeah, good.
Well, and part of it is you're just trying not to make any mistakes. I had the opportunity to speak with Geddy Lee of Rush at one point, and he was telling me that, Alex can pay attention to, like, he'll see things like 16, 17 rows. He can read a sign like 17 rows out while he's playing and then come back later and go, oh, did you see the sign that said such and such? Meanwhile, Geddy's like, I'm trying not to trip over a chord. I'm trying not to, I'm trying to hit every note. I'm trying not to screw up. So even though you got muscle memory, it is. And
you
so,
still want to, you want to respond and you want to do it in a graceful, respectful way to when people, because there's love coming from them to you, and it needs to be acknowledged. And I totally get what he's saying.
So you guys do well at that show. You start working a record. You head to Little Mountain Sound to record, as I recall. What do you remember about recording for the first time at Little Mountain Sound?
Well, we went in with Bruce Fairburn, who had some experience as a producer for a band called Prism, who were another Canadian band around about the time that we were starting out. He was very well versed in the art of diplomacy and ego massage and all those things. Now, you also have to understand that by the time we got into the recording studio, we had already paid our dues in the nightclubs for probably 8 months. So these songs were completely under our fingers and our hair. And I mean, it was just so streamlined when we went into the studio. They put mics up. We usually got these songs done in 1 or 2 takes. And Bruce was like, I can't believe this is so, well, we've been doing this for eight months. And like playing our typical shift when we were playing nightclubs would have started us at 9 o'clock and we go till 2 a.m. And we did all original music. There was no cover tunes. So maybe once in a while we'd throw in a Led Zeppelin jam or something, but and people loved it.
Now, and back in that day, I remember back in that day, at least in the States, you'd have a band and they would play like 3 or 4 nights in a row at one particular club. And they would is that the same way it was then? Or were you bouncing from club to club?
Yeah. We actually played 6 nights a week. So Monday to Saturday. And then Sunday that was our rest day. So it was grueling, but it was also, it shaped us and it allowed us to see directly, like you get a visceral connection with the audience with a song when you're playing in a nightclub, because it's so close. Everybody's hunkered in and you're trying out a new song. You can tell immediately if there's some kind of a connection being made or not. Mm-hmm. And so what a great, laboratory to try out, your experiments of your songs in front of people. So that was really good. So when we got into the studio, well, we had gone through all that and we had selected the songs that we thought had got the best response. and the ones that we enjoyed playing. So Bruce basically sat behind the control room desk and just press play, press record. And we had it all done within a week, all the beds. And then we took another week and a half to do all the overdubs, and we were done and delivered it to the record company. I think under budget, so they loved us. And then it went out onto the radio waves. And I can remember we were still playing clubs in a little town called Lethbridge, Alberta. And Mike and I were driving to the drugstore. We had a rental car. We were going to get, I think he had a head cold. We were going to get some aspirin or something. And we're driving along, and our song came on the radio. The Kid Is Hot Tonight. And we pulled over, and it was like that scene in Wayne's World where they were listening to Bohemian Rhapsody. We just stopped and we were just rocking our heads, like,
yeah, it's kind of like
high-fiving, and it was just
that thing that
such a, oh, it was a brilliant moment, because, you know, all that work and all that sort of fantasy you have about it, it's reality. And you're listening to it on the radio, and you can't believe your ears that somebody's actually playing music you worked on and wrote on the radio. So yeah, we've had some great moments.
Did you guys think at that time you were about to start a journey selling like 10 million records?
Yeah. Well, we connected. Somehow we were the right band at the right place at the right time with the right songs. And we really had a good strong run for probably 8 years, I think.
And perhaps the right producer, right?
Then I'm sorry?
And the right producer.
Of course, yeah. Bruce Fairbairn for the most part. And then we had Tom Allen, who did Lovin' Every Minute of It. And then we went back to Bruce. And Bob Rock, of course, who's another name that you associate with us. And then he went on to work with Bon Jovi and Metallica and so on. So we actually just worked with Bob a couple of years ago. He had some studio time, and he had a couple of songs that he thought the band might have fun recording. So he had been working with a couple of guys in Nashville, and he said, hey, do you guys want to check out these songs? So we did, and we went in and recorded them. It was just more of a high school reunion than, you know, having any expectation that these songs were going to catch on by any means. But it was fun. It was an exercise in sentimentality, I think, more than anything.
Out of curiosity, how did you guys get tapped to write the United States team's Olympic theme for the '84 Olympics?
How do we get, sorry?
Did you guys do some song for the Olympics, an Olympic theme song in '84 or something like that?
Did.
I read that somewhere.
Yeah, good memory. So that came to us, that was a request that came to us from, I don't know if it was Giorgio Moroder. Remember that he was a tech, dance tech kind of a guy. He wrote a lot of music that was kind of the new age techno dance music. Giorgio Moroder. I don't know, not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but anyways, they tapped him to write this piece, and I think he subsequently offered it to us, and it was on ABC Sports. It got used a lot for that occasion, and it was a song we probably wouldn't have written because it was very specific to the whole, competition and the Olympic Games spirit. So, but it was fun, and I remember recording it now in Chicago. I think it was. We were on the road and we went in and did it. And it turned out quite good.
Now, out of all the hits that you guys have released, which one surprised you the most at the success that it found?
Honestly, for me, it was Working for the Weekend. When Paul first brought that song to us, I was like, really? Okay, I get the vibe. It's a real working class man song. And it's got a great hook. But I had no idea that it would become the iconic, definitive song for us. When it started to catch on, I just was like, wow, I never would have seen that coming, quite frankly. I'm glad it did, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a song that I thought, when when we had Turn Me Loose and The Kid Is Hot Tonight and, the other hits that were on the first album, I thought, yeah, those are solid songs. They've got, great structure and Mike sings them well. And for whatever reason, I didn't get that same feeling for Working for the Weekend. I just thought, hey, it's a solid song. Let's see what happens. Man, was I wrong about that song. It just was the ultimate, 80s anthem.
Even to this day, I think I was watching The Masked Singer like a couple of weeks ago, and somebody performed that song on The Masked Singer. So I know
it's been used so many. It's the little song that could, right? I mean,
yeah.
There was that hilarious version that Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley did when they were Chippendale dancers.
Yeah.
And it's been used in a couple of movies. So yeah, it's just amazing how that song just has, been part of the milieu of the 80s culture, just stuck for sure.
When you guys look back, do you guys kind of see your own fingerprints on kind of part of the sound of the 80s as you look back? Because from my perspective, you guys really kind of helped kick off some of that particular sound of that decade. It was you and just a couple of other bands that had that specific kind of unique sound.
Yeah, whether or not it was intentional, I don't know. I think it just happened by osmosis between our various styles. Me coming from the pseudo classical jazzy sort of background, and Paul coming from his more straight ahead Jimi Hendrixy kind of long guitar, uncomplicated guitar solos kind of thing. And then of course, Matt with his powerhouse drumming is kicking the crap out of every song. It just created itself. And I think you always look back in hindsight and think, was that something that we deliberately tried to do? I think what we tried to do is remain gainfully employed as musicians. And we accomplished that. We wrote music that we thought, first of all, we liked, and then you take that huge leap of faith and hope that your fans are going to like it also. So it's always a crapshoot. And a lot of bands have the old sophomore jinx where they have this great first record and then they try so hard the second record. Yeah. And it's almost like they overthink it and they try to predict what is going to recreate the same conditions for the success of the first album. And you can't do that. It's very much a Zen-like process where you just write what you think is good, and hopefully that will, attract enough people back to your fold that you can go back out on the road and play some more shows. That's kind of what it's all about.